Well, this week's local elections could be a bruising affair for the Conservatives. Last time these seats were contested, they were riding high. They won big. Now, with the threat of reform, they're likely to lose a lot of councillors. On the national stage, most polls now show them in third place behind Nigel Farage's party and Labour. Well, I can now speak to the Conservative leader, Kemi Badenoch. Good morning.
Good morning, Trevor.
Let's start with Ukraine. What do you make of President Trump's message yesterday that maybe Putin, doesn't want to stop the war? He's just tapping me along.
Well, I think this is definitely a sign of progress. It's a positive signal. I have always said that President Zelensky was the hero in this war. Putin is the aggressor, and for those of us who believe in freedom, we should not allow the aggressor to win. Certainly not someone like Putin, who doesn't want to see freedom in Russia or Ukraine.
And have you then thought that, alongside that Mr. Trump, who plainly favoured the claims, as it were, of the Russians, was just wrong in his strategy?
Well, I think what we saw was President Trump trying to bring the war to an end in the fastest way possible. But
Was that a mistake?
Yeah, but I've been very clear that the strategy the UK had when we were in government, the strategy that Boris Johnson had, was to make sure that Ukraine didn't lose any further territory. It had to be a war that Russia stopped, not one that Ukraine surrendered. And it's interesting, I believe he said that it looks like Russia's been stringing him along, or words to that effect. And if that is the case, then this is a very positive signal, and we welcome it. And it was really heartening to see him talking to President Zelensky in the Vatican yesterday after that really awful press conference where Zelensky was humiliated. I think we should all be pleased to see these positive signals.
Can you envisage a land for peace deal in which Ukraine surrenders some of its land? I mean, would that be something that you would support, or would you feel that's just an outrage rewarding aggression?
It would be rewarding aggression. And we all need to remember that Ukraine is fighting a war on Europe's behalf. Russia is not an ally, Ukraine is. Remember what happened in Salisbury, poisoning people on our soil. That's what Russia does. So Ukraine losing this war is a very bad sign. It's a weakening for Europe. We want Ukraine to have its territorial integrity
So from your point of view, no surrender?
There should not be. No, there should not be. We need to do everything we can to support Ukraine, and that's going to need the US's support, which is why I really welcome these positive signals that we've seen from President Trump.
Let's talk about the job you used to do, or the issues that concern job you used to do, Trade Secretary. We don't know how close UK and the United States are to a trade deal, though Pat McFadden talked essentially about weeks. If the government came to Parliament and said, we think that we've got a deal with the United States, but by the way, it involves us accepting some things that the EU might not like. I think chlorinated chicken, for example. Would the fact that it might make a deal with the EU less likely give you pause for thought about backing a deal?
So let me first of all start by saying that they should be close to closing this, because we got very close last time President Trump was in office. So this is something which we've negotiated. Let's see where they get to. When it comes to things like chlorinated chicken, we have high food standards in this country. When I was Trade Secretary, I didn't do a deal with Canada. Lots of people criticised me for it. Canada wanted us to water down our food standards for these same issues, hormone-treated beef, etc. And I said no. So Labour should not be doing that. And it's not about the EU. It's about making sure that we have high standards in this country and we have a level playing field.
But the EU standard would preclude some kinds of deals with the United States, wouldn't they?
We have that's not quite how trade agreements work. What you let into your country is what you let into your country. We're not in the EU anymore. We have a free trade agreement with the EU. We want to see a free trade agreement with the US. What Labour needs to do now is show that they can get a deal that isn't making concessions, so we can have what we had last month before the trade tariffs. And we need serious people doing this. What I have seen so far is that whenever Labour negotiates, Britain loses. Whether with the Chagos Islands or with the unions, they always go in surrendering everything and then hoping the other side will be nice to them. And you look at who is doing the negotiations, a business secretary who's never run a business, never, as far as I can tell, worked in a business, can't find his solicitor regulations, only just discovered that he's not a lawyer. That's who's doing our negotiating. And that's what worries me. So I'm I'm hopeful, but I'm not optimistic about Labour's ability to negotiate.
This is very interesting. You're attacking the Business Secretary
And she's Business and Trade Secretary, yes, he is.
On his qualifications. This morning, you accused the Prime Minister personally of cowardice, I'm quoting here, having no moral core, twisting in the wind, thinking he's too clever to be held to account. Is this the way you're going to fight the rest of the election campaign? It's not very elevated, is it?
I'm going to speak the truth. When the Prime Minister is at PMQs and he's being rude and dismissive, you don't ask him whether that's the way he's going to conduct himself.
But you don't like it when he has a go at you because of you.
I don't. People can have a go at me for whatever reason. I will speak the truth. And what I saw last Wednesday was a man who refused to apologise or even acknowledge that any wrong had been done to a woman who was hounded out of their party because she said biological sex
This is the Canterbury MP, Rosie Duffield, you're talking about.
That's right.
Have you come to conclude, a casual reader would say that you actually dislike the Prime Minister?
No, I don't dislike him. I dislike his politics, and I dislike the fact that there's no conviction in anything that he does. How can we have a Prime Minister who doesn't know what a woman is until the Supreme Court tells him? What does he know about the economy then? What's he going to do about foreign affairs? We've just been talking about Trump and Zelensky. If someone is too afraid to say what they think because they're afraid of what the media will say or what others will say, then how can they lead the country? And the reason why I'm so vocal on this issue is because I took a lot of abuse from Labour MPs, calling me a homophobe, a transphobe for saying what the Supreme Court has just ruled. So I don't have any sympathy for them feeling that they're getting opprobrium. They just have to deal with it. Politics is about making difficult decisions, and they need to grow up and be honest about what it is they believe in.
Yes, this may sound like a sort of tiny difference, but actually you will know it's quite a big difference. It's one thing to say that your opponent's act is cowardly. It's another thing to say the person who's facing you is a coward. And what you're saying this morning is that this man is a coward. He has no moral core. He twists in the wind. He thinks he's too clever, i.e. he's too arrogant. How can you say you like such a person? That is personal.
This is politics. I'm saying what I see. I don't have many interactions with him outside PMQs. I will say what I see. My job is to be the leader of the opposition, to hold the government to account. I speak for all of those people out there in the country who are feeling the pain of Labour's decisions, and they've been getting things consistently wrong. This week, I was on 2 farms listening to farmers talking about how their lives are being destroyed. We're talking about chlorinated chicken. The biggest thing that's going to destroy farming in this country is the family farms tax. Labour has done that, been unapologetic. It's not my job to like the Prime Minister. It's my job to speak for all those people out there who want their voices heard. OK, well, all those people out there are going to have their voices heard on Thursday. And last time we spoke, you accepted that you were in for a spanking. Is that still your expectation? I did not use that term, Trevor. Those are your words, not mine. I said it's going to be extremely challenging. But we have to remember, next week's elections are not an opinion poll. They are about who's going to be running adult social care, who's going to be fixing roads, looking after children with special educational needs. And across the board, Conservative councils deliver better services for lower taxes. You only need to look at Birmingham and see what's happening there, rubbish piled up in the streets, rats running around. That's what you get when you treat politics as an opinion poll. We mustn't get into any individual authorities, but we get your point. Put a number on it. What's a good night for the Tories? I'm not putting a number on it. People ask me this all the time. I'm not playing guess the number. What I want to see is the hard work of Conservative councillors across the country rewarded. They do a very difficult job. They've managed under very tight finances. Conservative councils are not the ones that are going, losing money, going bankrupt. They keep the council tax low, unlike Labour, who promised to freeze council tax and have been raising it. Look, what councils are going to need, especially with tariffs and this and uncertainties, is a stable administration. In many places, we know that there will be no overall control of councils, and typically what happens there is there are coalitions, and people in your party have been in coalitions with others. Will you forbid your councillors to go into a coalition with Reform? OK, so I want to be extremely clear, because people have often been confused by this. I am not going into any coalition whatsoever with Nigel Farage or Reform at national level. I've been very
Under
clear
any
about that.
circumstances?
I've said, read my lips, Trevor. I am not going into coalition with Nigel Farage.
Under any circumstances?
At local level.
Under any circumstances?
I will repeat myself. I'm not going into any coalition with Nigel Farage. At local level, it's different. In the national election, you can rerun the election. At local level, you can't. So there might be no overall control. And what I've said to our councillors, I trust these people. They're very smart. They've been doing this for decades, is that you have to do what is right for your local area. You look, at the moment, we are in coalition with Liberal Democrats, with Independents. We've been in coalition with Labour before at local government level. They have to look at who the people are that they're going into coalition with and seeing how they can deliver for local people. So, what I don't want to hear is talks of stitch-ups or people planning things before the result is out. So they have to do what's right for their community.
So if the numbers work out this way in a particular area on Friday morning, you're not going to say to any of your local council leaders, you may not work with Nigel Farage's party?
A lot of the people who are in Reform now are defected Conservative councillors. So they probably worked with some of those people before. This is why I say they need to make that decision themselves. I wouldn't recommend going into coalition with people who are not credible, people who have no agenda, no manifesto. We need to make sure that we're delivering the services, picking up the rubbish, filling the potholes, looking after adult social care, running schools. That's their job.
OK, so people who are going to vote, who want to vote Conservative, know that the outcome might be a coalition with Reform, if that's the way it falls. But one thing that's interesting, I mean, you haven't been shy to, as we've discussed...
No, I'm not shy.
You're not shy. You haven't been shy to express your views about the personal characteristics and capabilities of the Prime Minister. The TUC boss Paul Novak says this morning that Nigel Farage is, I'm quoting him here, a political fraud and a hypocrite, cosplaying as a champion of the working class. Would you endorse that message?
So it's not for me to speak for the TUC or endorse them. I've been very clear that Nigel Farage wants to destroy the Conservative Party. He said so himself. This is one of the greatest institutions of our country, I firmly believe. He is not someone that I'm interested in doing business with. And he's already lost 20% of his party. Rupert Lowe himself, someone who came in wanting to make Farage Prime Minister, says that man must not be Prime Minister. So let the people who've worked with him speak for him. I'm here to speak for the Conservative Party. We are the only credible party right now that's standing for local government. We know that people
You're happy to talk about the Prime Minister's character, but you're not so keen to talk about Farage's
character. That's because
character.
I'm the leader of the opposition, not the opposition to Reform, the opposition to the government.
Oh,
that is the job that I have been given. I don't want to spend all my time talking about all the other minor party leaders. I've got to talk about who's running the country.
You may not be the opposition tonight to Reform, but you are a competitor. And we read this morning that one of the Conservative Party's big donors, Basim Haidar, donated £700,000 to the Tories under Rishi Sunak, has announced he's giving £1 million to Reform. You must be worried that he's just the first of many.
No, I'm not worried. We are raising money as well in the Conservative Party. The last release showed that we raised more than the Lib Dems, Reform and Labour combined. So we're doing fine on donations. Obviously, we don't want to lose our donors, but we need to make sure that what we are doing is about the public. It's not just about winning elections. What are we winning for? What is the agenda?
I'm not sure I've completely understood where you are on this whole Reform relationship. Let's see if we can get at it another way. Let's remind ourselves of what your colleague Robert Genrich said recently to a group of Conservative students.
You head towards a general election where the nightmare scenario is that Keir Starmer sails in through the middle as a result of the two parties being disunited. I don't know about you, but I'm not prepared for that to happen. I want the right to be united. And so one way or another, I'm determined to do that. And to bring this coalition together and make sure that we win these elections.
Now, some people interpret this as disloyalty, a leadership bid and all that. And if you want to tell me that's what you think it is, by all means do so. But I think it sounds more like something pretty obvious, which is an acceptance of reality that as long as there are two parties competing on the centre-right, you are never going to get into Downing Street. Isn't he right?
That's not what he's saying at all. We've had
so
many
what's he
parties.
saying?
Well, look at it this way, Trevor. There are many parties competing on the left: Lib Dems,
No,
Greens,
I'm
Labour.
talking about what
no, let
the
me
right.
finish. If I
I'm
may.
talking about what he said.
Yes.
Not...
So, and yet Labour still won. Just because they're competing parties on one side doesn't mean one party cannot win. What he is talking about, and which I do agree with, is that we need to bring back all those people who left the Conservative Party to go to Reform. We do need to bring that coalition back, just as I want to see the people who left us to go to Lib Dems or to go to Labour coming back. That doesn't mean I want a coalition with Labour or Lib Dems.
Kemi Badenoch, the Leader of the Opposition, thank you very much for your time this morning.
Thank you, Trevor.